welcome to everyone. We are presenting a documentary tonight called Justice in Italy. I just want to tell you very quickly a few points that we need to consider, otherwise we don't get the context of what we are going to watch, since we have a mixed audience of people who know more and people who know less about the Italian situation, Italian politics. I think it's useful to recap on some of the points we see in the films. The first point I want to make is that this campaign for justice and rule of law in Italy dates back actually from the 70s, from 1976 at least, when the leaders of the Radical Party that we're going to find then in the film started with a few hunger strikes. And I remember I had to write an essay in class, and I was 16. I was already talking about this hunger strike of this group of people. There are 4 or 5 on hunger strike in the 70s. So those are long-term initiatives. And the campaign actually is not just about the humanitarian conditions in jails. It's about jail and justice. One of the slogans of the campaign is that the situation in the prisons is the appendicitis of a justice system that is not working well. This is important because the slogan we see in the film is not just let's have an amnesty and release people from jails, unclog the arteries of the system, but actually let's start from an amnesty and the situation in prisons to then have a reform of the judiciary system in Italy. So it's quite an ambitious reform. You see also in the video, and that's my third point, that they mention a hunger strike. Actually, the hunger strike of the leader we see in the film went on for more than 2 months, and then became also a thirst strike, so not drinking and not eating. And that's when the televised shot that we see in the film was taken. So we're going to see a man who is 82 years old during a hunger and thirst strike. I say that because the subtitles only translate hunger strike, and they don't tell you for how long the strike went on. I want to introduce the character, the character of Marco Pannella you see in the film, because not in the film but in other in other interviews he stressed that the use of non-violence was just to get the Italian state to respect its own laws and the jurisprudence of the European Court for Human Rights. The court has sanctioned Italy more than 1,000 times, 1,095 times up to now for lack of respect of basic human rights in prison. So actually the discussion here is about using non-violence in order for the state to respect its own laws and regulation. It's not for anything else than respecting the rule of law. It's not for any change, it's for a debate on why rule of law is not respected in Italy. And in relation to that, it's important to observe that apart from the leader, Pannella, you see in the film, there were many other people on hunger strike during the summer. Some of us saw the article I wrote for the International Relations blog. At that moment in time, there were 15,000 people on hunger strike. They then went up to over 25,000, perhaps just for one day. This hunger strike then was repeated mid-August, on the 15th of August, only one day of hunger and thirst strike. The interesting point is that obviously most of these people were people in jails and their relatives, but then it became also a way for example, people who belong to the trade unions of the prison officers to join in the strike, for some magistrates, some lawyers, etc., etc. So one word that I don't think it comes out really neatly in the translation is this word of community. The idea of creating in the prisons a single community with a single state that goes from the prison officers to the inmates, all glued, let's say, by the belief in rule of law and the other objectives of the campaign. So I think creating a community is quite important because in contrast to other European situations. Italy, notwithstanding this state of play, didn't have major riots, not during the summer, not in spring, not now. Very few episodes, because non-violence became the key strategy of the campaign, of the inmates, and of the prison officers, of the magistrates. So it's a very important point. There was a complete neglect of the media, notwithstanding the thousands of people who were on hunger strike. And this is what is shown on the little poster I prepared for this conference. When the neglect of the media became total, there was nothing, the Radical Party rented a double-decker bus, and they projected a filmed message by Pannella on the walls of the Italian public broadcaster RAI, it's called. It's interesting because, funnily, those are the pillars of the walls of RAI, and they created the impression of a jail, and that was just serendipity. No one planned for that. And then a newspaper in Manifesto took this and put it on the front page, and slowly some other newspapers and the television had at least some snapshots of the campaign. In July, then the President of the Italian Republic and the President of the Senate agreed to a two-day major conference on the situation in jails. So you see in the video also the President of the Italian Republic, which is not the Prime Minister, it's not Berlusconi, okay, someone else, who talks about the situation in jails at this two-day conference. The campaign is still going on, obviously, even now. I want to say finally two things. One, the film is not gory. You don't see people with blood coming out of the jails. Some of you may have seen The Prophet, the film in Arabic, Corsican, and French, which is absolutely the opposite. This is very fact-based. Actually, it's clean. There are scenes from Favignana, Jarre, Messina that are not shown here. So the objective, the French have a say, épater le bourgeois, disgust the bourgeois. That's not the aim of the film. It's very matter of fact, it's very short, 17 minutes. I'm very pleased to present this here because at the 39th Congress of the Radical Party in Rome in November, a decision was taken to Europeanize the initiative. So the people like me are going out in different European countries to see whether this message resonates with those who have an interest, for example, in prisons and jails in the UK. And finally, last week, at start of the week, the BBC Radio 4 program, they had a good half an hour and more on justice, the same title, not prisons, but justice in the UK with Shami Chakrabarti and other experts on human rights and prisons in the UK. So one thing we may want to discuss after the film, if we're still here and not tired, is the implications for other countries. I suggest we stop filming so we are more